Hello, everyone. Welcome to Filipino Voices Behind the Characters panel at WonderCon at Home, presented by Search to Involve Filipino Americans. SIPA has been serving the community for 49 years with our youth and family-focused human and health services, community economic development, and creative arts and culture services based in historic Filipino town, Los Angeles. My name is Ruby Ibarra, and I'll be your host and moderator for this amazing panel at WonderCon at Home. All three guests today are legendary actors who also have voice acted some very iconic characters in their career so far. Before we begin today's panel, it would be remiss of me if I didn't note how important their work truly is. I think when we think about entertainment, particularly media for the masses, we now often think about film and television. But before these became the dominant form of entertainment in the 1950s, one form of entertainment used to be radio programs. And I used to hear stories about them from my late grandmother and just how powerful storytelling is through voice and voice acting. Now, fast forward to my generation, I was a kid in the 90s who always looked forward to two things every single week: Saturday morning cartoons and after school cartoons, which all had characters that helped shape my childhood and appreciation for entertainment. So first and foremost, let's give them their flowers while we can. And I want to say thank you to Shelby, Eric, and Dante for the work that they do. All of the characters that they portrayed have significance to me, our audience today, and millions of other people out there. So now it's my honor to introduce our multi-talented panelists. So please meet Shelby Rabara. Shelby is a native of Southern California, is the voice of the lovable Peridot on Cartoon Network Steven Universe. Her television credits include recurring roles in Amazon's Goliath, starring Billy Bob Thornton, as well as The Mindy Project, Two Broke Girls, and Glee. Shelby is stoked to be a series regular on a new animated show on Netflix, but due to an NDA, she can't share one just yet. In her off time, she enjoys the beach, cooking, and having dance parties with her daughter and husband. Let's all welcome Shelby.
Hey. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on this panel.
How have you been? It's been a while since we've seen each other.
Yeah, it just feels like yesterday, though. Doesn't this whole past year, just 2 years, I think. I can't remember. I think it's been 2 years, Ruby, since I saw you perform. I was so fangirling, too, when I met you. I was so fangirling. I was so nervous to meet you. But I was like, yo, you're so dope. But inside, I had so many butterflies. But it's been so long. It's so good to see you virtually and, along with Eric and Dante down here.
It's so good to see you too. And I just feel like, times kind of moved very quickly in the last 2 years, but I'm glad that, you're able to join us for our panel today. I think we're going to have some great conversations, and I'm definitely excited to learn more about the work that you do, and as well as everybody else that's on the panel. So next we have Eric Bauza. Eric started his impressive animation career as a character designer. He quickly discovered that bringing characters to life through voice acting, performing in his passion. Eric is known for replicating both performance and vocals for iconic, beloved animated characters. With a broad range, he is also known for a seemingly effortless innate skill to find the natural inner life of original animated characters. This has made Eric an invaluable performer for animated works. Eric's resume is filled with the characters in current series for all the popular animation studios. Among them, Fozzie in the hit series Muppet Babies for Disney Junior, Splinter in Nickelodeon's new Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Tweety, and Pippi LaPew in Warner Brothers' Looney Tunes cartoons. Please give it up for Eric Bauza.
Hi, are you sure you got the right guy? I'm not sure if that was was that all me? I'm not sure. I feel like you got Dante, you got Shelby here. Yeah. You don't need me. I'm just, you saved me the trip to Anaheim, that's for sure. Having this panel virtually, but it would have been nice to be with you all. But since we can't be, I'm happy to be here with you in this form. So thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm definitely happy that you're here with us today too, and I completely agree. I think obviously we would have all loved to have this in person, but I'm glad that everyone's tuned in today to join us virtually. And yes, Eric, that was your resume. Actually, if I were to be honest, I had to kind of pick and choose. You just have such a prolific career already and such a wide resume where I was like, if I'm gonna read Eric's resume, this might take me the entire hour. So I apologize for summarizing it, but as you all can see, Eric's done such amazing things already.
I'm just trying to get Warner Brothers to animate Bugs Bunny with lumpia instead of a carrot. So that's my goal. As with my tenure as Bugs, I'm trying to get the lumpia in the logo. So
Yes, let's cross our fingers for that. Thank you, Eric. And lastly, we have the one and only Dante Basco. Dante was first introduced in Steven Spielberg's fairy tale movie Hook as Rufio, the leader of the Lost Boys, which quickly developed into a fandom phenomenon, and I was one of those fans. Continuing to work in films with leading roles such as New Line's Take the Lead, Blood and Bone, and starring in the debut, which became the voice of a Filipino American generation. Ever versatile, Dante has voiced some of the most celebrated projects in animation and video games. As the voice of Jake Long in Disney's animated series American Dragon, Jake Long, as well as Prince Zuko in Nickelodeon's phenomenal hit Avatar: The Last Airbender. Please give it up for the Prince of the Fire Nation himself, Mr. Dante Basco.
What's up, y'all? You make it sound so good, Ruby, right? Bauza? She's like, I'm like, okay, did I do all that stuff? Sounds great, but I'm happy to be here, and it's good to see everyone's faces and catch up with you, Ruby, and Bauza and Shelby. It's just, it's been a while since I've seen anybody, so it's good to see you guys virtually.
Thank you, Dante. To be honest, you guys have made my work today very easy. I mean, all I have to do is, read your bios, and everybody is already familiar with all your guys' work. So thank you again for sharing your time with us today. So I guess to start things off, what I like to do generally when I do interviews, especially, when we talk about artists such as yourselves who have all prolific careers, I think it's important for us to kind of trace back and bring it back to the history, to the very beginning, because I think oftentimes, when we think about an artist's career, we have a better understanding of who they are today and why they do the things they do, knowing, their journey and the things that they've experienced. So the first question I wanted to ask for each of you, what were some of your favorite animated films, shows, or characters during your childhood, and why? I guess pretty much think of Saturday morning cartoons. What was 5-year-old Shelby, 5-year-old Eric, and 5-year-old Dante watching at the time? Let's start off with Shelby first, and I guess let's go Shelby, Eric, and then Dante.
I loved right off the bat, Tiny Toon Adventures. Yeah, that, and I would have to say Animaniacs, which I know that they rebooted this year. So I'm super stoked to be watching that again. I always gravitated towards the animated characters, obviously the girls, but like strong, opinionated female characters, which, there's Babs on Tiny Toon Adventures. I would say those were my two favorite ones, along with, on the other side of the spectrum, super weird, Ren and Stimpy. That was my other go-to. I just loved. I like quirky. I like the quirkiness and the weird, opinionated characters. I guess those were my favorites growing up at age 5, when I was like barely talking. My mom thought I was mute, and then turn on cartoons, and I would just nonstop talk and say whatever Babs was saying. So yeah, I would definitely say cartoons at a young age definitely helped me come out of my shell. And they were my friends. They were my friends. Saturday morning friends.
I love that. How about you, Eric?
I was going to say, at least for you, Shelby, clearly Peridot, the love for the quirky characters has come into your own quirky characters. So it explains so much. It's so cool, though. I love hearing that. And I'm the exact same way. And just as Ruby said, I think we're of the generation where we could only watch cartoons on Saturday mornings and after school. We're not spoiled like these kids today with their cartoons 24/7. Anytime they can get them on YouTube or whatever streaming channel. For me, it was definitely the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show on Saturday mornings. So those were the pretty much like the first wave of syndicated reruns of the original Golden Age era shorts.
Starring Bugs Bunny, me, what's up, Doc? And Daffy Duck as well, woohoo!
And Marvin the Martian Earth Creature. So I would have all of this crap in my house, even if I weren't the voice of these characters. Definitely The Simpsons for sure. And the mentioned cartoons like anything from Warner Brothers, like Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, Batman the Animated Series, Freakazoid. Feature films, definitely Aladdin, primarily because of Lea Salonga, I'd have to say. The singing voice of Jasmine. She really hit it out of the park and really made us Filipinos proud, us Pinoys proud to see someone of that shared our face in animation, like belting out this iconic song. So that was definitely up there for me. And of course, watching Mr. Dante Basco and Hook, for sure. I mean, it's not a cartoon, but I mean, that was as close to a live action cartoon, having Dante and Robin Williams on the screen at the same time. Speaking of Aladdin, holy smokes, like, talk about legends. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. I guess, Saturday mornings, I was like Smurfs, and Smurfs are big when I was growing up. I really like that stuff. And Garfield, I like cartoons like that. I loved when anime came to America. I had cousins that grew up in Okinawa, and we started watching Japanese cartoons that we didn't even know was anime. So I was really into Robotech and Battle of the Planets, which is Gatchaman or whatnot, but I knew it as Battle of the Planets and those things. And I was a big Thundercats fan. Like growing up, I loved Lion-O and the whole crew. So like that era was definitely like my after school stuff. So a little anime and a little American stuff. But Smurfs was so big. It's a Saturday morning. I remember watching Smurfs always.
Thank you guys for sharing that history. And I'm honestly not surprised, with the what you guys shared with us today. Exactly what Eric said. I think it only makes sense now that you play, such a powerful character like Peridot. And then for Eric, I mean, can you imagine if you could go back in time and tell 5-year-old Eric, who was watching Bugs Bunny, that's gonna be you someday? Like that probably would have blown your mind. And I completely agree with the Dante Basco comment about with Rufio. Definitely for my generation, that was pretty much my first superhero seeing on TV in film. So I guess now transitioning from the three of you being fans of these cartoons and these animated characters, let's kind of delve into that shift to you now being on the other side of that. For each of you, when did you first learn or recognize that voice acting was an option as an actor? And when did you realize that you wanted to pursue that path? And also, were there any specific moments in your journey that fostered this interest?
I didn't even really think that voiceover was an option for me. I started off as a dancer. So I was a trained dancer growing up, a little ballerina, a little bunhead. Got a dance scholarship to the Edge Performing Arts Center, which is now unfortunately closed. But I got a dance scholarship, and that's what kind of introed me into Los Angeles and the professional world of the entertainment industry. I take that back. When I was younger, I did a lot of productions with Debbie Allen. So I guess that's I got paid for that. That got into my account. But I didn't know that voiceovers was an option for me until I booked my first acting gig, which was a multicam sitcom called Grounded for Life. And so that kind of got me in other rooms to audition for acting gigs. And every time that I was in front of certain casting directors, they'd always ask me, do you do voiceovers? And I'm like, oh, no, I don't even know how to get into that. So I went to a bookstore called Samuel French, and I got a book called Word of Mouth. And I loved the book. It just kind of was just, the simple steps into getting into voiceovers and, how to create characters, how to practice certain characters. And so out of the blue, I was a student at UCLA at the time. I called the number on the inside of the book and I got a hold of the author, Sue Blue. And I just asked her, I was like, do you teach classes? Because I'd love to take voiceover classes. And she's like, as a matter of fact, I do. So I just started training with Sue Blue, and that's how I got into voiceovers. And it took me quite a bit. I went through a couple of agents to finally book, my first role. Actually, Peridot's my first role. on an animated show. So I was super excited about that. So yeah, I didn't know it was an option until certain casting directors asked me if I was doing voiceovers. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I just kind of ran with it. I was like, oh, here's a phone number in the book. Let's call it. And then I did. And I was like, sweet. And that's how I got my reel. So then, you know, it was just steps from there, and it just kind of like snowballed. And yeah, that's how I started.
Thank goodness you called that number.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that, Shelby. How about you, Eric?
First of all, Sue Blue, holy smokes. She was I worked with her on Ben 10 Omniverse. She was the voice director, but she's also the voice of RC. She was the first female Transformer
Yes,
that was featured in the film.
Wow.
Exactly.
Thank God you called her. Holy smokes. And I can't even imagine both of you in the same room, the energy.
Well, that was the thing. When I first met her, I was like, oh my gosh, she's this tiny little woman, but her energy was just through the roof. And I was like, I love this, you know, and she really pushed me really hard, along with her partner, Cynthia, to kind of, it was such a workout for me. And I loved like having that dance background. That's why I really like voiceovers, because you get to be super physical in the booth in a way where kind of on camera you kind of have to, you know, there's a lot more control that goes along with physicality for, you know, serious acting roles. I mean, comedy is a different story, but yeah, Eric, I love, Sue Blue. She's amazing. She's the best. Amazing.
Unfortunately for me, I don't look as good in a unitard, so I'm not a dancer myself. I never tried, but I just don't think it would be a pretty picture. But luckily for me, I was a cartoonist. That's how I got into voiceover. That was my first kind of venture into it. Did I think that there was an opportunity for voice acting? Maybe, but not really. Did I know how to get into it? No, not at all. And I looked through like similar books. It was like how to make $1 million with your voice, or lose your throat trying. And I think that was by Gary Owens. He was the voice of Space Ghost and tons of other Hanna-Barbera superheroes. And as well as the announcer on the show, Laugh-In. But yeah, it was very strange. I kind of got into it through like a backdoor. Being in animation, I was a character layout artist. I used to draw. I used to finesse poses of characters after the storyboard was done, and those poses would then get passed off to an animator to be animated. But when you're on that side of the glass and the microphone, you kind of see all the different departments in animation, and one of them, of course, is editing animatics, and that is the marriage of, you know, sound effects, music, and maybe temp dialogue with picture to kind of show what the story is before it gets complete. And someone was like, "Oh yeah, like we need like a voice for this character temporarily," and they kind of knew that I was into voices and doing impressions and stuff, and that's kind of how I got into it. It was kind of eventually one of those voices ended up being in a series, so I was not a formally trained actor. I learned in the booth. I remember sitting in the booth with Dante at Nickelodeon. And I was like, oh my God, it's Prince Zuko. Oh my God, it's Dante Basco. Like, this is the legend. And I was just sitting in the corner, and I was with Andrea Romano. Do you remember?
Yeah, of course.
Holy smokes. Before she retired. And yeah, I remember that day. I was like, well, I'm in here with Dante, so I must be doing something right. So
you're awesome. You're a legend, Bauza. Come on.
But that's it. I came in through cartooning. I've had like, you know, of course we're in the pandemic, so I've had like interviews or sketches. So I this is one of the things that I've drawn. Marvin the Martian on the back. There's Bugs Bunny, but I did Marvin the Martian the other day on a Zoom talk. But like, yeah, that's the kind of thing that I would do to kind of get into animation.
That's an incredible and inspiring story, Eric. Like, it honestly, for me, it seems like you went literally from the page to the stage. You know, being involved with kind of like more the animation, and then finding yourself in the vocal booth, like towards the end of your journey. So thank you for sharing that with us. And how about you, Dante?
Yeah, I'm just amazed by Bauza. Bauza's like one of the only voice actors I think in the industry that can actually draw his character or has drawn his character and sign it. I voiced it, I drew it, and give it to you. I'm like, Bauza's a legend.
That talent's unreal.
Are you kidding me? But I'm like Shelby. You know, I came into the whole Hollywood game as a dancer, as a b-boy in the 80s, in the heyday of, you know, the birth of hip hop, really. So me and my brothers came to LA as breakdancers, and we started our whole career as breakdancers, and then we started studying acting. And you know, I was just doing on-screen acting my whole career. But as far as voice acting, it's one of those things that your agency, there's always, you know, there's that agent that does the voice acting, and it's like, I don't know, it's like another. And when you're catching checks in the industry, it's all about catching checks. How are you going to catch a check? Whether it be for things that everyone knows, like film and television, or commercials, and then there's like things called industrials, which is like movies or video shorts for like companies that no one sees except for people at the company, or like hand modeling, and then there's like this voice acting thing. And so it would be auditions that would happen every now and then. And then I auditioned for something for Disney back in the day, and then my first gig was before all the other stuff started happening, voice acting years ago. I did a line in the Goofy movie. And I was like, "Yo, Stacy, talk to me, baby." And and what's funny is like that kind of like, you know, that put me on like a Disney list. I auditioned for Disney films forever and never booked anything. Like everything from Mulan to The Lion King to, you know, even things like Homeward Bound, where we're like the dog and the whatever live action stuff they're doing. And Jamie Thomason from there was like, "You've always been on my list at Disney." So I didn't, you know, I guess they have a list that I was on for years. And then I ended up, someone ended up doing, an Asian American artist got a show together for Cartoon Network, and they wanted me to do it. And then I did that pilot. It was called Kitty Bobo, and it didn't go. They did show the pilot one time on Cartoon Network. And then then I did American Dragon, and I just think things just started taking off for me, voice acting wise. It's not something I ever planned on doing. I mean, I am trained as an actor for on screen, but I always tell the young voice actors, like, just become a good actor, be a good actor. And it doesn't matter if there's a camera in the room or a microphone in the room, like we're still doing the same performance, more or less, you know?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dante. And again, thank you, the three of you, for sharing that. I think, you know, especially when it comes to just the entertainment industry, I think oftentimes when we think of actors, people think of, you know, the person that you see doing the lead role in a film or a TV show. And we often forget that there are, you know, these different departments. There are different ways to get into the industry. And I can definitely say the same thing with music. There's different ways that we're able to get our artistry out there. For this next one, I think let's keep this a more general question to whoever wants to tackle this question. In your experiences, in what ways is voice acting similar or different to, say, acting in live action film or even in theater?
Well, I mean, I'd say, you know, like I said, for me, it's maybe different because I do, you know, I always do my voice. I was just pretty much me. The characters I get to play more or less on, even in voice acting, are things very close to me. And so it may be something I get to play on screen at certain times of my life. So I'm really just doing the same work and doing the same character work and trying to be open, as honest in the performance and the story as if I'm on camera. So I almost, you know, you learn technique, of course, as you're in the booth longer, how to work with the microphone and how to do your voice. But, you know, when you're working as an actor, you're always got to consider how people are receiving it. And that's a difference between television and film and voice acting. And in film, you know, your head is 20 feet big. In television, your head may be like 2 feet big. And so the reaction and what you're putting out there changes with that scope. And when you're doing voice acting, all you have is your voice. So you're kind of emoting a lot through your voice, and you're very reliant also on the brilliant artists like Bauza can tell you that we share the performance together. And it's kind of like, that's the magic of animation. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're a good actor, like, good acting will come across regardless. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I feel the one thing that I've learned about voice acting is voices don't lie. Like, you can hear it if it's a lie. And I believe that same thing, you know, when you're watching film or television, you could see it right in the eyes, right? But there's something just when you just hone in and centralize on a voice, just listening to it, you could really tell if that's really truthful. And I think that's what all acting is just, you know, taking a character, doing the work behind it, where they're coming from, you know, all the technical stuff, like, you know, Dante just mentioned. But I think it's voice acting has to be truthful, even in the comedy, because there's sometimes, you know, like we all know what makes funny. It's like you either laugh or you don't. It's like that certain thing. And so I've really found myself, I think I'm really hard on myself for my voiceover auditions, because I'll listen to it back and I'm like, oh, I hear that beat where I'm lying. It's not truthful. Whereas an on camera, you know, self-tape or something like that, or when you're on set, you know, it's take after take after take, and they can edit around you to make you look good physically, you know, in front of the camera. But I feel like as far as voice acting goes, you can't lie in voice acting. It's right there in every breath, every beat you take, all the comedic, you know. I think it's kind of hard to fake the funk a little bit more in voice acting, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I also got to add, see, like I do like character voices, but both Shelby and Dante have voices with character. Like their natural speaking voices just sound so good that most of the times they don't want you guys to change your voice. They want me to change my voice. Listen to me. I sound like a clogged sink. But Shelby and Dante both have such nice natural voices. And, you know, you look at someone like Rob Paulsen, who's the voice of Yakko Warner. He has a really nice, natural sounding voice too, but he could also go into characters. But most of the characters, like him or like John DiMaggio or someone like Tracy Morgan or Chris Rock or Seth Rogen or Dante or Shelby, they all have like this like unique calling card to their voice that most often, if they're in you know, in a voiceover role, it's like, yeah, they must depend on good acting. And for people like me who do impressions, it's like, it's like if you're doing Bugs Bunny, you know, who's a character that has been around for 80 years, you definitely have to rely on, you know, the 80 years that led up to my turn. And like, people aren't going to forget like the amazing performances that have been, you know, put before us, like by people like Mel Blanc or like Jeff Bergman. So you kind of have to rely on like your tool as an actor to kind of like draw into those moments. But it's funny, like again, what Dante said, it all comes down to like that good acting, that good performance.
Yeah,
and
you still find the truth. We got to find the truth in whatever we're doing. And it is interesting with voice because it's more of a vibe. It's a feeling, like it's tonally with like music. It's like it's there. And I don't even as I'm directing now, you know, when you reach that place in a scene in a moment, it's like it's weird. Almost like the air in the room changes and everyone's like, that's it. Like that's what we're trying to do. That's where we're trying to get to right there. And it's just having that feeling of everyone knowing that we're in the right place at the right time and getting everybody in that right place. Mm-hmm. That's great directors. Andrea Romano, you brought up earlier. She gets us there, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with the three of you. I think when it comes to voice acting, for me, just from a fan perspective of, you know, growing up and watching all of these animations and still watching animations to this day, I just feel like, you know, when it comes to listening, especially to these iconic characters, we remember these voices. These voices become recognizable. We learn to understand the intricacies that, you know, that with the tone, like Shelby mentioned, and it really does come through, and that becomes the focus. So even though we don't see you guys actually in the vocal booth, your voices have become iconic. And Eric touched on this a few minutes ago. Bugs Bunny is, again, an iconic character who turned 80 years old last year. I think so many of us have a special place in our hearts for Bugs Bunny, as do I, whether we grew up watching the character on TV or playing the character in video games. You know, Bugs Bunny is a cultural icon who is a part of American history. I mean, the catchphrase, "What's up, Doc?" is easily recognizable. Now, for this role to be filled by a person of color, especially a Filipino American, to me is very monumental, inspiring to see, especially for generations who grew up watching Looney Tunes or even Tiny Toons like my generation. Additionally, there's going to be a new generation of kids who are going to be introduced to Bugs Bunny for the first time, especially with the upcoming Space Jam movie. When I think of characters that help define American animation, I think of the likes of Mickey Mouse, Flintstones, The Simpsons, and of course, Bugs Bunny. So this next question is specifically for Eric. One of the questions I wanted to ask you today is, to play such a historic and iconic character, did you feel any sense of pressure or expectations of filling the shoes of a pre-existing character? And if so, how did you overcome those feelings?
Oh yeah, always. I mean, whether it's an iconic character or an original character, any time they ask you to step into the booth, there's always a little bit of pressure to keep your job. You don't want to mess it up. But something like Bugs, especially, where it's like everyone's going to be watching. The people who the fans or the haters, like the people that just want to like tear something apart. And there's been so many different versions, at least even within my time with these characters. I first started voicing Marvin the Martian almost like a decade ago. I'd say, yeah, it was like around 2016, 18. I'm not even sure. But when production started on Looney Tunes the Looney Tunes show. And then there was like Wabbit, and then it became New Looney Tunes, and then now it's Looney Tunes cartoons. So it's like every version like has been either like one of the versions was like animated sitcom, like Bugs and Daffy lived in a house together and the other Looney Tunes lived in a cul-de-sac, and it was like kind of like very dry. It wasn't like the old cartoons at all. But it was like, Family Guy was really popular at the time, and I think that's what they were trying to go for. And then Wabbit / New Looney Tunes kind of went back towards like 11-minute sketch comedy, kind of, wackier, more slapstick type humor. But this version, Looney Tunes cartoons, is definitely the first in a long time where they literally went back to the drawing board, and it's just like most cartoons that we make are only 7 minutes, like the original shorts. There's not a lot of dialogue, and when there is, it's totally just driven for gags. And so like I feel like having a good team, having like the writers and the artists there to help support and guide your performance, especially with someone like Bugs. Like I said, he's 80. He's like, we know him like we know our Lolo and Lola now. He's Tito Bugs to me now. He's like an uncle. Like, so when you kind of like step into something like that, you just take every Saturday morning that I had with Bugs, with me and my brother watching. Our favorite one was Hillbilly Hair, and it was
promenade across the floor, sashay right on out the door, and into the glade, and everybody promenade.
It was like all the stuff where he's singing, like you take all those memories with you and you put it into the performance, and you just hope, and you try new things too. Because I feel like as an impressionist, you can get so into the box of this voice that it could hinder your acting. Whereas when Mel Blanc was doing Bugs, he didn't care. He was doing all sorts of weird stuff. I always reference this one line where he's helping the little penguin get back to the Arctic, North Pole, and he's like,
"Oh, where you headed?"
And then like he shows him a map, and it says North Pole. It's like, North Pole? Oh, I'm dying! And it's not even Bugs. It's like Mel Blanc's like natural voice. So it's like, it's weird stuff like that I was trying to bring back, because I knew, like, if you're a fan, again, for like me, I'm like a fan first. I'm always trying to see who is doing what, like what nuance are they bringing to this character that everyone knows, and I guess what kind of thumbprint will I leave on mine. And I feel like Mel Blanc always had this unhinged energy to him. And I mean, he was doing this character in the 1940s, like probably in a warehouse with no air conditioning and asbestos in the ceiling, a 3-piece, smoking indoors and drinking like whiskey, like at 11 a.m. So I don't know. It's such a weird character, but such a well-known, beloved character that, just, again, I'm just lucky to be here. But yeah, lots of pressure. There was a lot of pressure. And you need that pressure though. Like, you don't get rid of it. You kind of need it always, so you keep pushing yourself to become better. Like there's always room for improvement.
Definitely. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. You're, continuing the legacy while adding your own flavor in it. I also wanted to ask you, Eric, real quickly, can you walk us through the moment of when you found out that you got the role of Bugs Bunny?
Oh, I mean, it's just like an email, like every other gig now, we get it. It's like they just tell you you're in, and it was like one of those moments where I was like, I can't believe like this is actually happening, because I had only auditioned for Bugs twice in a decade, and that's how often they open up that character to a fresh take. And I think it's because they went really, really far back with the show.
But no one wants to talk about Daffy. How come no one talks about Daffy? He's arguably the best character. Who cares about Bugs? Woohoo! I want some.
It makes me think about, I bring my son to there's a Sam Wu Chinese food around the corner here in the valley. I go, what do you want, son? We're gonna have Porky Pig and Daffy Duck, lechon and duck over steam rice. That's what he always says. I want to eat Porky Pig and Daffy Duck today. So yeah, no one talks about Daffy. But yeah, I was of course over the moon when I found out. And you talked about being a person of color. We live in now these times where representation matters so much, but I feel like at the beginning of voice acting, it was like it didn't matter what you looked like, right? Like, because it's voiceover, so you can kind of embody any character. But to know that I'm the first person of color to be voicing such an iconic character, if it means anything to anyone watching that shares our faces, or even if you don't share our face and you're just afraid to use your voice and you feel like you're different than everyone else, I hope that it will inspire, generations to come. Kids or adults, who knows?
You're definitely doing just that, Eric, by the way. You're inspiring everyone. The three of you are inspiring everyone, and everybody tuned in and beyond that. Now, my next question is for all three of you. I wanted to ask, for the notable characters that you three portray or have portrayed, how similar or different are these characters from you in reality? Let's go with Shelby first.
Well, Peridot, she definitely has no filter. Shelby in real life has a filter at times. So yeah, I would say her emotional outbursts are Peridot's emotional outbursts that actually happen. They happen inside of Shelby silently because I have a filter. But I think as far as, Peridot's just like a big lover, and I would say Shelby's a big lover too. Until you cross me. And that's the same thing as Peridot. You don't want to cross Peridot, and you don't want to cross Shelby in real life either. Just fair warning, just letting you guys know. I'm kidding, but that's honestly how I
know. Everybody take note right now. Do not cross Shelby.
I got real scared. Like I thought,
especially now that Shelby's a mom. It's like a whole new thing comes out. Like Mama Bear comes out, and I'm like, oh, I had that in me. I do have Peridot in me. Whoa, pump the brakes. Not to scare anybody out there, but you did ask how I was similar to Peridot. But I think I'm definitely more of a lover, just like Peridot is. So yeah, she's weird, and I think I'm a bit weird at times too. So yeah.
Well, I was always taught, as an actor, like there's a lot of there's a lot of you in the character, and there's a lot of the character in you, and I think that's a big part of a lot of the roles I play. But as far as what I'm most like, I mean, even like people like Rufio or Zuko, because they're so iconic, I'm like, actually, I'm Jake Long. Like I grew up, but instead of like skateboarding, I was just a b-boy. But like Jake Long was just kind of like me, talking and cracking jokes with the other actors, and we improv so much in '90s. It makes no sense. That was like came out in the like 2000s, and we were doing like '90s hip hop terminology through the whole thing. And Disney was like, I don't even think Disney knew what we were talking about. Some of the references we were just improving. And even when I got signed on to do the show, I remember doing the press tour, and I was like, I'm so happy that, Disney has a hip hop show now. And they're like, the president of Disney, like, we have a hip hop show. I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, my show, like if I'm starring in the show, it's a hip hop show. And so I think Jake Long, there's a lot of me in Jake Long, but there's a lot of me in Zuko too. It's when actors and characters cross, because we're actors, and a lot of people will play like Bugs Bunny. A lot of people are going to play these characters if they live as long as Bugs Bunny has lived. But when you come from the theater, a lot of people play the same characters. It's like, where do you and the character intersect? That's where you play it. That's all we got. That's what we play. And so that's where Zuko and me meet, right where I played it. And so that's kind of how it works. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. For me, it's less Bugs, and I feel like I'm more like Fozzie. He's that like very beats himself up, desperate for laughs comedian. He is a comedian, and he's super funny, but he's also very like sad. he's like, oh, Kermit, I hope people laugh at my jokes tonight. Oh, don't worry, Fozzie. It's like, oh, I always worry, Kermit. Yeah, it's like Fozzie has always been like my favorite Muppet, and getting to play him for as long as I have on Muppet Babies, and of course Muppet Babies. Growing up as a kid, that was, aside from Thundercats and G.I. Joe and Transformers, Muppet Babies and was up there for sure. But yeah, I think I'm most like Fozzie of all the characters I play.
I love that. Thank you guys for sharing your thoughts on your similarities or differences with your characters. My next question, I wanted to bring the spotlight of the interrogation light onto Shelby next. With this one, I wanted to say first and foremost, by the way, Shelby, I haven't had the chance to tell you in person, but I love Steven Universe so much. I am such a big fan of you because it's an animated series and film. I think that explores, in my opinion, so many important topics. I think that animations typically doesn't, including but not limited to, relationships, family, individuality, self-acceptance, even overcoming anxiety and social pressures, I think, which a lot of the youth today can definitely resonate with. I wanted to know from your perspective, has voicing Peridot impacted you personally or affected how you think about or approach these various issues that the show's covered?
Absolutely. I don't think in my performance, it's been something in my head when I was voicing her, that I was thinking about, I'm going to be affecting, the audience. It was only until I met the fans at, conventions, or even when I would meet somebody at the coffee shop, like the Coffee Bean in Burbank, in the middle of a record. And he would be like, "Are you Shelby? Do you voice Peridot?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he would tell me how much Peridot meant to him because of just what she stood for on the show. And for those of you watching, who aren't familiar with Peridot was definitely the outspoken character of the show, the anti-hero at times, wanting to, get rid of Steven and the gems, and then all of a sudden becoming a crystal gem herself, through really thinking about relationships with them and friendships, and these people actually care about this gem, that's trying to kill them. So it was meeting the fans, I think, that really made me wake up to the fact, wow, like Peridot really did have an effect on, and as well as, the show Steven Universe. But I think meeting everybody at these cons and, meeting, whenever I have emotional, not confrontations, but like conversations with fans and they start crying, at first I get a little, I'm a little shocked because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're crying. But then I realize the show has had such an effect on these people, and they love Steven Universe and Peridot so much, and it has changed me. I have such an affinity to people who struggle with being on the spectrum. I don't think the character of Peridot was written to necessarily be on the spectrum, but people who are on the spectrum identify with her, and it's definitely opened up my mind and, has educated me on what it is to be on the spectrum. So yeah, it's definitely, playing Peridot has definitely affected me as a person. But it wasn't until meeting fans of the show, I didn't know it was going to do that to them. So it's been a really amazing experience.
The fans are crazy for that show.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say, sorry, Dante. I
go.
met Shelby in New York because I was hosting the Steven Universe panel in New York for New York Comic Con, and I mean there was like Adventure Time, there was regular show, and it was at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Was that right? It was because Comic Con in New York is so like spread out and in odd places, not like San Diego. It's all in one spot. So we were at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and that place has how many balconies? It has like 3 or 4 or something. And I watched that place fill up from the whole ground floor, 2, 3, like 4 balconies full, all the way to the roof. The amount of fans that you had there were insane.
Yeah.
That show's so big, Shelby. I mean, that show's so amazing and so deep and heavy. It's just one of those phenomenal shows that I don't think anyone saw coming. And I mean, and great Filipino representation with you and with Didi Magnol and Jennifer Paz. I'm like so proud of all you guys. And then the impact of the show and what it really means. I remember auditioning for the show and not understanding what the hell the show was. I was like, what is going on in this? And it was just the oddest thing when I was reading it. And then when it came out and you really see what it's about and the impact and the underlying meanings of everything, I'm blown away. I'm still, every time Steven Universe comes out on TV or I see anything about it, I'm just blown away by the whole show and how you guys all brought it together.
Shout out to Rebecca Sugar for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it was all Rebecca and her team, the Steven Cruniverse. I'm still so surprised. Like I booked Peridot. I auditioned for all 3 characters, and then my agent was like, yeah, they want you to voice, or they want you to audition for Peridot. And then I submitted my audition, and I found out, I think like the next day, I'm like, is this how it works? It works this fast? And I remember being so nervous with Rebecca because she was directing me my first session. And Rebecca she's just so sweet behind the mic. She's like, okay, let's try it again. And then I was like, what? Can you talk a little bit louder? But it was just, and then it turned into this thing, and Peridot was like this big with arms and legs, and then she turns into this like little tiny Peridot character that's all quirky. So yeah, it was just a dream come true to voice Peridot and be on Steven Universe and just like witness the journey. It was pretty cool.
So I just wanted to echo Dante and Eric real quickly. Honestly, yeah, the Steven Universe fandom, the community, it's so massive. Aside from myself, I know so many other friends who are in love with Steven Universe. And again, like what Dante mentioned, the impact that it's had on people, and also feeling comfortable within their own skin. That's the kind of impact that the show has brought. I also wanted to note how important music is also in Steven Universe. I wanted to ask you, Shelby, with music playing such an integral role in the show and in the film as well, in what ways do you think the music has helped address the different themes or amplify these messages?
Oh my gosh, I think music is a huge part of the episodes and the movie. Gosh, I think it is one of the defining things about Steven Universe, actually. The composers and everybody that works on writing the music. Rebecca works on the music, I think, first and foremost before writing the scenes. In some instances, I think particularly with the movie, she had collaborated with all these amazing artists for the movie, and she went there on her own time. She flew out when writing, I forgot what season it was, but in the middle of seasons she would fly out to all these places. She was in Chicago with Chance the Rapper and like showed up at the studio, and they worked out the song. And she came back and she told me, and she's like, do you want to hear a little bit of it? And my mind was blown when she let me hear it. I was like, wait, so you went to Chance's studio and you just kind of like collaborated with him? And she was like, yeah, we played video games and we just like wrote the songs. And I was like, wait, what? So music is definitely one of the defining things of the show and the movie. And it just has such an impact on, I mean, I have the vinyls at home and I have my daughter listen to them, and she just loves the music. And so, and even just like, what the lyrics say and the meaning behind the songs, it's just such such a powerful vehicle of the show and movie. So yeah, the show wouldn't be what it is without the music.
Absolutely. So I actually got the chance to watch a Steven Universe panel in one of the conventions. I'm not sure if I ever told Shelby this, but I remember I got there early with my partner. Like we stood in line. We saw it in the pamphlet. Like, okay, we have to go to the Steven Universe panel. We waited in line. Once we finally got in, I was like, oh my gosh, Shelby's on stage. And then Estelle happened to be part of that panel as well, and I remember she sang a song, and the first thing that we did when we got back to the hotel room was like YouTube the song. And I completely agree with you. Like I feel like if Steven Universe didn't have the music, it would feel kind of like there's a void. Like it needs to have that music element to it too, and I think it made it all that more powerful. So up next, I also wanted to now focus in on Dante's work, because I know we're getting close to the end time, so I wanted to make sure that we had space to, of course, mention Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is super iconic. It's a beautifully animated series that explored concepts such as imperialism and war, as well as purpose and justice. And of course, even went on to spawn another powerful animated series, The Legend of Korra. Dante, I think that your character Zuko has been largely popular amongst viewers because of his transformation and redemption arc. I think that your portrayal of Zuko, in my opinion, was executed carefully and beautifully, showing vulnerability and growth, making his character, of course, very real, nuanced, and relatable. Dante, I wanted to ask, what initially drew you to wanting to portray Zuko, and were there any challenges during that experience?
I mean, I wanted to portray it because they wanted me to portray it, and I was like, "Oh, you gonna pay me? Let's do this." Like any actor, I mean, the thing is, you jump into these things, and I'm sure Shelby can attest. I mean, outside of Bauza, Bugs Bunny's Bugs Bunny. You're like, this is big time. Like, okay, but with these other original projects, we don't know what it's going to become. I think when I signed on to do Zuko, I just thought I was going to be the bad guy on a Nickelodeon show. I was like, I'm the good guy on a Disney show. I'll be a bad guy on the Nickelodeon show. And then as his story kind of unravels, and the whole story of the whole show, it's like you start reading scripts, and this is before the internet age. This is before we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Twitter, nothing. We were just doing it. And we're like, this is crazy. Like, we would rush back in. The other actors, Mae Whitman and Jack DeSanto, would come into the studio like, did you read the script this week? Like, what are these kids doing? Like, this is crazy. Hold on a second. What's going on? What's going on? And so we were just hyped on the story. And that's all you really want to do, as an actor. And I'm fortunate to have these characters that became, iconic in pop culture. And I feel very blessed about that. But at the end of the day, as actors or as filmmakers, you just want to be a part of a great story. And I've been very fortunate to be a part of some great stories. And then consequently, these great characters come out of these great stories. So I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know where I was doing with the character. I was just like being a good actor and just trying to be as prepared as I can and just really dig, what the character was doing. And being as truthful and honest in every scene that we did. And I got to work with Mako. Mako was his last subject he played on. His last project was Avatar, and so it's very special, my relationship with Zuko and Uncle Iroh, because Mako has played my uncle and my father, several times, 4 or 5 times in my career, and he's known me since I was 12 when I first worked with him, and so he was like an Uncle Iroh figure to me in the industry, someone who I would work with every few years, and who watched my career and watched me grow as an actor and would give me advice and sageful things to tell me about, things he's been through and what I should look to do and what not to do. And so to be a part of his last project was very touching to me and really kind of set me forward and kind of helping things out for the next generation of Asian American actors. So yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm rambling. I don't know if we know what we're doing in the time as it's happening. And then I think, like Shelby, it's just amazing as the internet thing popped off and you got to see the impact of what this show did. I mean, and I didn't come here to be a voice actor. I didn't, and I love cartoons, but I didn't understand the impact of animation. And then, you do this character, and then this is probably going to be one of the characters that I'll forever be remembered for, and it's forever impacted someone's life, and it's forever impacted my life. And it's not something I walked in the door at all thinking would happen. And 15 years later, you're like, wow, that really changed my life,
Yeah, thank you for shedding light on that. I think, that's an important thing to note, that when you're kind of like in the moment, you don't really know the impact or kind of the repercussions of, the ripple effect that it's going to create, the project that you're on. I mean, Avatar, The Last Airbender, I think originally released back in 2005, right? But I think that, however, within the last few years, we've kind of seen this resurgence with the show's popularity. I mean, I hop on Twitter now and I'm seeing like these new generation of kids constantly tweeting, photos of Zuko, of photos and merch around the show. And so I wanted to also ask you, Dante, why do you think this is so? Like, what elements do you think resonate with this new generation of viewers and kids?
I don't know. I think it's the redemption arc. I think everyone is misunderstood and everybody's done bad and everybody wants to hopefully do right by the end. And I think that's the humanistic story of Zuko. And I part of me too is just, I'm kind of baffled and just, I don't know. It's like one of those things where you stand there, and I'm sure you guys all can attest, and you meet a lot of fans at Comic-Cons around the world, and so wonderful, the fandoms and whatnot. But I'm also still that actor that's just a little bit confused, maybe. Like, I don't know what I did. You're just kind of sitting there. You're like, I just love to act and I love to tell stories, and I'm kind of tickled every time people are so impacted by it. And hopefully we keep that, because there's more projects that we're doing, there's more things that we're doing. And when I'm working with young filmmakers and young actors, it's always like, don't worry about how the fans are going to take it, because that's not our job. Our job is to be present today and try to kick ass today, and let the fans and let the critics tell us how great we did, 10 years from now. But right now, like, let's just experience this like right now, and I try to kind of hold on to that.
I want to admit, by the way, Dante, recently I was part of like this panel for college kids, and for my avatar, I used Zuko's photo, and every single person was making comments in the chat. Everyone recognized them. Everyone loves that character. I also wanted to ask you, other than fire bending, if your wish came true, what form of bending would you want to have and why?
I mean, it's Fire Nation forever, Ruby. Don't even ask me that question. It's Fire Nation forever. The rest of them, they're cool. That's all good. I like what they do. But, this is Fire Nation forever.
Forever. You guys heard that. Thank you, Dante. Next, I also wanted to ask all three of you if you can kind of walk us through a typical day of a recording session for an episode or a movie. Like, are there warm-ups involved, multiple takes? Do you need to strictly stick to the script, or is there room for improvisation? And has there ever been an instance where maybe a random or unplanned off the script line ended up somehow making it onto broadcast?
Now, is this a pre-pandemic or pandemic session you're talking about? Because there's a difference now.
Pandemic is weird now, right? It's like, you're just walking into a surgery room now, like by yourself. No one's there. Everyone's on video. You're like, this is where I stand. Is that mic clean? Okay, let's go.
I walk into my closet. That's where I record
that's
from.
True.
Like 80% of Space Jam 2 will be in my closet. So if you hear a lawnmower or my neighbor's dog barking, I'm sorry. Just blame LeBron. I'm gonna say LeBron couldn't put me in a studio, so I'm recording it all in my closet.
Yeah, but vocal warm-ups for sure. I got to do like a few on the way to the session. I'm always doing my vocal training warm-ups. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, toy boat, and doing things to kind of get my mouth loosened up. I got in trouble from the director Charlie Adler for he's like, when did you wake up today? I'm like, probably not early enough, Charlie.
Oh my God.
You should be doing yoga at 7 a.m. before this 10 a.m. session. I'm like, I just woke up at 9. I mean, there are things like that.
I definitely jam. Like, I have a dance party in the car on the way there. Other than the technical stuff, warming up your mouth and muscles. But I definitely have a little dance party that usually Whitney Houston. I want to dance with somebody that usually pumps me up for Peridot quite a bit. And then, once I was in the booth, Steven Universe, we went pretty quick, actually. My recording sessions were sometimes they'd be, an hour, sometimes like 10 minutes. But yeah, I enjoyed group records. Now because of the pandemic, we can't do that. And on the new show that I'm on, I just feel like I've been in a submarine in this like void because I haven't seen anything either. So I'm always like at the end of my session, like, is that good? Are you guys okay? And they're like, yeah, we got what we needed. But as an artist, I'm like, I have no idea because I'm super visual. So, you know, when I was doing Steven Universe, I really enjoyed seeing the animatics up on the screen so that I could match Peridot's voice to what her face was doing. That's how we did it on Steven Universe. So I would always ask, can you go back a couple slides so I could see what her eyes were doing? So I would try to match what I saw on the drawing to the line. So I missed that. So
and part of the gig is the hang. Like the actors, part of being an actor is the hang. Like part of every show, the culture within that booth with all the other actors, like those, like in Avatar, like that's the show to me. I know everyone watches the animation. I've watched the animation years later and enjoy the animation, but that show and all the shows I've done, it's the hang with the other actors and the daily stories and the vibe with each other, which ultimately makes it into the show, like the camaraderie and the inside jokes and all that stuff making the show. But I do miss that. I miss that hang with the things I've been able to shoot and record over pandemic. That's what I miss the most, you know?
It's that creative atmosphere. It's like, that's what you look forward to, right? Is meeting the writers, the directors, the producers, the artists. And although we've been able to succeed and thrive during the pandemic without personal interaction, it's just not the same, right? I know exactly what you're talking about, Dante.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You miss it. I miss it so much.
But you were saying improv, like I told you that line earlier from my first thing, the Goofy movie. That's Jodeci. I did that in the thing because it's the 90s. It's literally Come and Talk to You was one of my favorite songs at the time. And they were like, how would you holler at a girl? And it was like, you know, I go, yo, Stacey, talk to me, baby. That's Jodeci. And people are like, holy shit, you did Jodeci. I was like, yeah.
Oh my God. So good.
And since we're all here today, of course, I have to address the elephant in the room, the question that's on everybody's minds. Eric, how is the upcoming Space Jam movie? Is there anything at all that you are allowed to share with us?
Oh man, you're talking to a kid that grew up watching the original with Michael Jordan. That was our generation's GOAT, right? That was the go-to guy. He was forever the greatest.
Yep.
But then there's people like LeBron, man, who arguably, look at those numbers. They're chasing everybody. He's chasing everyone. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think anyone could have brought the characters back and, you know, a movie that's worthy of following the first one, like LeBron has. He's super, super nice. The work outside of his basketball and movie career with charities and, you know, being a family man himself is very impressive. Like, I don't understand how much, like, he is a superhuman, being able to, you know, hop onto the Lakers, have a pretty bad year, come back the next year to become the champions, and do a movie, all the charity work that he does for Akron, Ohio, and everywhere else. It's just, I'm like,
It takes me a long time to warm up for Daffy, and that's all I have to worry about.
But someone like LeBron, you know, and seeing this movie, it is a family movie. It is not like some, you know, oh, we're just going to put Nike shoes in the background and talk about McDonald's or Hanes or any other product placement. It really is surprisingly a family film about a father-son, you know, relationship, like his son wanting to do other things than basketball. And it's very interesting. And then the Looney Tunes happen to be in it. There's no other way to explain it. Hopefully we'll be seeing a trailer soon, depending on when.
Can't wait. We all can't wait. We all can't wait.
When this panel drops, who knows if we've already seen the trailer or not, but I know that it's coming soon. And I've been, the lawyers are outside.
Ooh, those Wonder Bread and Warriors are outside, and, along with that putty tat.
Yeah, they're outside. They're watching me, making sure I don't say anything that I'm not supposed to say. But it has been officially announced that I am in the movie, but I can't say who I'm playing in the film. But there's characters that I've played and characters that I haven't played before in the Looney Tunes universe. So it's very interesting. And leave it to LeBron, of course, to
I like to call it the shaking of the ant farm. Is, you know, when Hollywood builds up like the machine perfectly, someone shakes it and just says, I'm going to do it my way, and we're going to do it this way. And it's LeBron's movie. He's exec producing it. So
It's amazing.
It's going to be good, guys.
Awesome.
There you have it, guys. I tried my best to squeeze out some information out of Eric, but as he said, we have to stay tuned for the official release of the trailer. But I'm definitely hyped myself. I can't wait to watch Space Jam 2. I know the first one is, you know, a classic for everybody, especially my generation, and people worldwide. Lastly, my last question for the three of you is, you know, again, since we're in this special moment right now, I think in entertainment where we are seeing a lot more, you know, representation for Asian Americans. So I wanted to ask, where would the three of you like to see AAPI visibility, especially in voice acting in the next few years? And lastly, do you have some pieces of advice for upcoming actors who may want to follow in your footsteps?
I'm ready for a show, animated, you know, Filipino American show. Working on something. You know, I mean, and male stories as well, but particularly like I want to see like the Filipino American experience animated, because in animation you can go anywhere, you know. I mean, I'm not just talking about like, you know, peaches and cream, like all strawberries, you know, all the fuzzy wuzzies. Like I want to see like a legit show that talks about like the struggles of being Filipino American, growing up, you know, as first generation, or even, you know, moving here, you know, like my sister grew up in the Philippines and then she moved here at a really young age, having to assimilate into the American culture. I'm excited to see shows like that are kind of nitty gritty, that have a lot of heart, but tell stories, you know, about the Filipino experience that we haven't seen. And as far as, you know, those of you guys that are watching out there, other actors wanting to get into voiceovers, just do it. Close your eyes and jump and be courageous. And honestly, you have nothing to lose. And this is the time to do it. So yeah, that would be my advice, and just to train and just jump and do it. Like, look at us, here we are doing a virtual hang. You know, I didn't think I could ever do this, and I guess it's happening. So there's that.
Yeah, there's definitely room for at least 3 or 4 more squares here that could be filled in this virtual hang.
Yes.
Yeah, do not take yourself out of the equation, because if you do, then it's over. Your quest for this career, this creative outlet is gone. So never give up. And I think that you know, seeing more Pinoy stories is coming soon. And I'm telling you, it's like exactly like Shelby, that there's NDAs. So there's so much stuff we could probably say, but we can't. But I don't think it's far. I think it's coming sooner than you think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's our time. You know, we're, as Asians in Hollywood, we're at the highest profile we've been in Hollywood in the history of Hollywood, which is amazing to think about. So there's, I mean, I'm not going to say there's no glass ceilings, but the glass ceilings have been shattered and are continuing to be shattered. So there's no holding you guys back right now. So just go, make a jump forward. And there are things that are going on. Our stories are getting out there. We just have to do more. I know Joe Coy's working on an animation thing. I did some stuff for Netflix that's all Filipino folklore called Trece, which is coming out maybe next year. I don't even know. I'm sure. I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for that, but I think so.
Well, now that you've said it, yeah, Trece. That's
yeah. I mean, but you know, but there's like things coming out that we've all been working on, and so it'll you know, it's happening. Did I get in trouble right now, Bauza? I don't remember if I signed it.
I think that they put out. I'm sure they put out a press release, but
okay.
I'm glad you're on board. Trece is insane. And that is like you know, for those who are in the know, that is like a very long running comic book series in the Philippines, and it is getting a Netflix a treatment, and it's definitely artistically, visually, one of the most pleasing like things I've ever been a part of. I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, holy crap. Like, I forget that I'm a part of this thing. You know, it's one of those projects where you sit back and watch it and go, oh yeah, I forgot I'm working. I thought I was just watching cartoons with you guys.
There's some cool
Again,
things coming up.
three of you are greatly recognizable from your voices. Before we go, for fun, since we're all here today, and for our audience tuned in, is it possible to give our viewers a message as Bugs Bunny, Zuko, and Peridot?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in, Doc.
Well, yeah, that's rough, buddy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all you guys for tuning in, you clods.
Yes, thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much, Shelby. And of course, thank you so much, Dante. Thank you again, WonderCon, for having us. For more info on SIPA, please go to sipacares.org. That's SIPACARES.org, or follow us on all social media platforms at SIPA Cares. Once again, my name is Ruby Ibarra. You can also follow me on social media at Ruby Ibarra. Thank you once again for tuning in, everybody. Take us home, Eric.
That's all, folks.
Yeah.
So great.
Woo!